Yes. Okay, so I'm just going to start asking questions, okay, Grandma? Okay. When were you born and where were you born?
I was born in 1943, March 1st, and it was in Aguada, Puerto Rico.
Can you spell the town?
Okay, Aguada is spelled A-G-U-A-D-A.
Okay, so is this like, what part of Puerto Rico is this? Like direction?
It's the east end of the island. It's a very small island.
Shmom.
The west is not the west coast, Danny.
Okay. What was your first language?
Spanish.
Okay.
I have no memory. I'm sorry, Annie.
It's fine. Just stop talking. What did your parents do for a living?
My father worked in the cane field. He was a field worker. He twice a year he would work in the fields, first planting the sugar cane, and then 6 months later harvesting the sugar cane.
Okay.
And my mother stayed at home taking care of the kids.
Okay. What were your parents like growing up?
My parents were very strict. Very strict. We were Catholics, so every Sunday we went to Mass. And it was downtown, so we used to have to take a public car to get to the downtown because we lived out in the country. And that was one of the very few places we went. The rest of the time we stayed out in the country in a small house. And we walked to school. So
Okay.
our parents were, especially my mother, she was very strict. She was a disciplinarian in the family.
Okay. What do you remember about your childhood?
I remember a lot. I remember, like, when I was 5 years old, I remember getting excited about going to school.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Start school. School was about a couple of miles away, so we had to walk there in the morning. But I had an older brother who used to walk with me, so I didn't have to walk alone. And we would walk to school. Some of the other kids that lived around us, we would all get together. Initially, it was a bunch of us, like 8 or 10 kids that walked to school. And we went to school. The schools were from 1st through 9th grade.
Okay.
Once you went to high school, you had to go somewhere else. And I remember some of my teachers. I remember my first grade teacher, as a matter of fact. She was really nice. She was one of my favorite teachers. And I remember they were starting just in, like in 1st grade, they were just starting to teach us a few words of English.
Okay. But so you did learn some English when you were growing up?
They taught us some English. It was unusual because the pronunciation is not exactly like the American English you speak.
Yeah.
Or like the English, you know?
Yeah.
And so, even though I thought I knew English and I knew some words in English, when I came to the United States, nobody could understand me and I couldn't understand anybody. It was not American English. And it was a little different and it was so fast.
Okay, hold on. All right, what do you remember about your house?
My house?
Yeah.
Okay. It was one story. It was just the living room, one bedroom, and the kitchen. We did not have indoor plumbing, so we have what you call an outhouse. And the house was out in the country, and it was built kind of like on stilts, you know?
Yeah.
Cement blocks in the four corners, and then the house was built on top of that. So it wasn't flat to the ground. Because I remember when we were little, we would go under the house and play under the house with our friends.
It's funny. So did you guys, like the kids, did they sleep in the living room or in the bedroom with the parents?
Well, my father slept in the living room. He didn't have a bed. He slept in a hammock.
Okay.
Loved, because he was just used to sleeping in a hammock. He didn't want a bed. So, and then when my older brother got a little bit older, he also slept in the living room.
Okay.
Okay. And then in the bedroom was my mom with me and a couple of little baby brother and sisters that we had. They were in the bedroom with my mom. And we had a couple of beds in there.
Okay.
And in the kitchen, we didn't have any kind of running water, and we didn't have electricity either. So it was just like, I guess you would call it like a wood square stove, and you put coals in there. And they got the coals started, you know, getting hot. And
Yeah.
that's where you put the pans on top of the coals to cook.
Okay. Okay. Coals. Okay. What do you remember about your holidays?
The holidays I remember best were Easter, because that was very important. We used to go to church. So we used to go to church on Good Friday. In Spanish, we call it Viernes Santo, which means Holy Friday. So very, very holiday. And we used to go to church on that day. And then on Easter Sunday, we would go to church also, get dressed up and go to church. And like I said, that was downtown. We had to take a car in order to get there. So that was, Easter was a big holiday. The other holidays were the Christmas holidays. You know, my father used to buy a pig, a little baby pig. And then throughout the whole year, they would fatten it up because that was going to be our meat for Christmas. And during the holidays, we would make arroz con gandules, and we would make a roast pig. And that was the big celebration on Christmas Eve, not on Christmas Day. Okay, so the big celebration for dinner was on Christmas Eve.
Oh, okay.
And as far as gifts were concerned, the kids didn't get any gifts until January 5th and 6th, which is Three Kings Day. And that's when supposedly the three kings went to see the baby Jesus and brought him gifts.
Yeah.
So we get our gifts.
So, do you remember what kind of gifts you used to get?
Yes, I remember getting a little wooden doll. Believe it or not, it was a wooden doll. It was not glass or anything. And I would get, I remember getting jacks to play with. And what do you call those? The little round little marbles.
Marbles, okay.
Yeah, we would get marbles to play with.
Okay. What do you remember about your siblings?
My siblings, I have an older brother, and then it's me, and then while we lived out there in the country, I had three younger siblings, and I just remember that I had to babysit them all the time. And I didn't like it. I was like, oh, I have to babysit the kids again. So I always had to babysit because I was the oldest sister.
I feel you, Grandma. Okay. What do you remember about your mom's cooking?
My mother cooked rice and beans every day because that's a staple in Puerto Rico. You know, you don't eat meat. We only ate meat like maybe once a month or something. So my mother cooked rice and beans, and we would eat that one meal a day. The other meal a day was vegetables that were grown on our land around the house. You know, because like I said, it was in the country, so we had a little bit of farming land around the house.
Yeah.
So we would grow vegetables. We would grow like green bananas, and we would grow a type of squash and another vegetable that it's not like potatoes, very similar to potatoes. And all those vegetables we grew around the house, so we ate fresh vegetables every single day.
Okay. All right. What do you remember?
Another thing about what we ate, once in a while we'd have chicken soup.
Okay.
Little chickens that my mother would raise around the house. So once in a while she would kill one of those chickens and we would have homemade, fresh cooked chicken soup.
Okay. What do you remember about your neighbors?
My neighbors, I remember my neighbors, one of them was my godparents. And they had kids our age, so they always used to come over to our house and we would play together in the evening. Since we had no electricity, it was real dark out in the country, so we would play hide and seek in the dark at night. That was a lot of fun.
Okay. Do you recall why your parents wanted to move to the United States?
Yes, because the work in Puerto Rico, the sugarcane work in the fields, was seasonal. So that means that just a couple of times a year they had work. The rest of the year they didn't have work, and they had to wait for the sugarcane to grow before they could harvest it. And so they didn't have any kind of work, So what my father did was he was planting food and stuff around the house, but there was really not much money coming in. So he wanted to come to the United States where he could get a job and make money all the time for us.
Okay.
To improve our lives.
Yeah. Hold on, writing down.
Okay.
Okay. When did you immigrate to the United States, and did your family all come together?
Not all of us, because my father came in 1953, and he flew directly from Puerto Rico to Chicago. And so he came and he worked for 3 years, and he saved money so he could send it back to us so then we could come. So my mother and the rest of us kids came in 1956, 3 years later.
Okay.
And my mother and the 5 of us kids came together on an old plane. We didn't have jets back then. Had the older, smaller plane, and we flew from San Juan to Chicago. And in Chicago, they didn't have the big airfield like they have now,
Yeah.
So we flew to a small airport called Midway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did a lot of the people in your hometown immigrate around the same time your family did?
Yes. We had a bunch of the men who came first in the very early 1950s, like 50, 51, 52, and 53. And some of them went back to Puerto Rico and told my dad that there was work. And so that's why my dad came with some of his neighbors and friends. And they all came to Chicago and then to a suburb of Chicago. So it was very interesting because a bunch of men from the same hometown in Puerto Rico came to the same town in the U.S. And they kind of stayed friends and hung out together and worked in the same town.
Okay. Let's see. What were your feelings about moving to the United States?
Well, at first I wasn't very happy. Because, when you're 12 and 13 years old, you just want to hang out with your friends.
Yeah.
Go nowhere else. You're never going to see your friends. So for me, I was happy that I would see my father, but the rest of it was really sad because I was in 7th grade.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of really good friends in middle school in 7th grade, and I was so sad to leave them.
Yeah.
And I cried and I cried and I cried. The last week I just cried and cried because I didn't leave. So it was very hard and it was very sad. It took me really a long time to get used to, making new friends and meeting new people and stuff.
Okay. What were the rest of your family's feelings about moving here?
My older brother was very happy because that meant he could work and he could make money. So he was very happy. Okay. And the younger kids, I don't think it bothered them as much because they were smaller, so they didn't have that attachment to their friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think it was very hard on me because I was at that age where, you just want to be with your friends all the time.
Yeah.